everything happened all at once, that I wasn't able to process any of those emotions how I should, right? I was buying a house. I was having a new child born into our family. I was moving our family. I was dealing with my mom who was unfortunately on her deathbed. All of those are major life events in and of themselves. And on top of that, I have cancer. I never dealt with any of these emotions. So now I'm sitting at home on medical leave. I did the chemo, I did the radiation, I did the surgery. I'm just at home with myself and my thoughts.
Welcome to 99 Humans. My name is Jeff Lakusta, curious coach and Wall Street Journal best-selling author, striving to understand how little things generate big impact.
And I'm Nadia, Carta, tech executive and lifestyle coach with a mission to transform lives and corporations by kindling hearts to generate a zeal for life.
Each week, we investigate stories about the human side of leadership to re-energize your spirit and help you become a stronger leader.
Because the reality is that leadership is messy, goofy, challenging, but always human.
Thanks for spending time with us today. Let's dive in.
Welcome, Raman, on 99 Humans. It's so nice to have you today. We always ask our guests, where are they in the world?
I am in Huntington, Long Island.
Oh, I've never been there.
It's a great town. You got to come.
I need to come.
Easy access to New York, but doesn't feel like, downtown New York.
Yeah. We do have a nice downtown area, though. A lot of nice restaurants, a lot of nice bars, good nightlife.
Nice. I go a lot to Great Neck. Those are areas that I visit. I guess it's more in the north. Where are you? South of Long Island or north of Long Island?
North Shore, Suffolk County, but right on the border of Nassau and Suffolk.
Nice.
So not far if you're familiar with like Great Neck. Also North Shore, but I'm in Suffolk County. Great Neck is Nassau, right? I think it's Western Nassau.
I'm still navigating all of those counties after 5 years. And Jeff, how's Atlanta treating you today?
Atlanta is good. We got one last, we always get fooled that it's going to be, it's warm and we're entering summer and now it's 40 degrees out. So we had a couple of nice days. We were in the lake this week, which was awesome. But now it's 40 degrees and way too cold for that. But have a fun fundraiser coming up for the Humane Society tomorrow night, which is pretty exciting. So yeah, life is good. How about you, Nadia?
Are you gonna be wearing a tuxedo?
Not a tux, but I will be in a suit. Yeah, so dressing up for it, which is fun.
Send photos. Please.
Oh yeah. Well, Raman, we are very excited to chat because 99 Humans is all about getting into the messy realities of leadership. And often those realities come from the fact that we are people as leaders and we're leading people on the other side. And when all of that happens, it can be funny, it can be goofy, it can be sad and hard. Yeah. And I know that your story is an incredible one that involves a cancer diagnosis and the birth of your child and moving out. There's so much that happened to you as a human being that impacted so many other areas of your life. So thank you for making time, coming on the show today. Maybe just to start, what are you up to right now? Ground us in what life looks like for you right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me. Greatly appreciate it. I am super excited to be chatting with you guys. And I was telling you, Jeff, that I've listened to a handful of episodes. I've taken some book recommendations from some of your previous guests. I'm diving into those. So really loving the podcast. Life right now, well, professionally, I am at IPG Media Brands, specifically Kinesso. So I am a VP alongside our programmatic teams for the pharma vertical at Kinesso. I've been with IPG almost about 7 years or so. In that time, have grown and operated in a number of different roles.
You've seen a lot of changes happen to Kinesso and IPG as well. Yes,
absolutely. And a ton
and more coming.
Yeah, exactly. But, we were chatting about this earlier, right? Ever since the pandemic, life has been a constant movement, right? There's always been change. And how you navigate that change is where the leadership, I think, comes from. right? And so that is my mentality, that there's change on the horizon. We've already seen a ton of change previously. How are you going to navigate it? And what's your approach to that? How do you keep a level head around all this constant change?
That's so nice. So how did you find yourself ending up at IPG? Where were you before?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was thinking about how I wanted to share my career journey, right? And I'll try to be brief, but I'll give you a quick rundown of my professional journey from graduating college and how I ended up, working at IPG Media Brands.
I love these. It's always like pretending to connect dots that may not, have looked like they connected.
Exactly, right? You look back and you're like, oh my God, like I can't believe all of these things came together the way that they did. At the time, you're just trying to make moves and get through the day sometimes, and you don't have a chance to look back. So looking back, right? So I graduated college and waiting tables and trying to figure out what my next move is. I had a degree in marketing, but I really didn't know how to apply that degree to the real world. I ended up getting a job at Enterprise Rent-A-Car at the time, which, looking back, it set a really solid foundation for me professionally. But the most important thing of my time at Enterprise was meeting people that would influence my career and my life 20 years down the line. So bouncing around after Enterprise, worked as a recruiter for a short time, and that wasn't the right fit either. However, I met somebody when I was working as a recruiter who would also influence me professionally and help me get into the marketing field about a year and a half or so after I had met him. And he was a very senior person at a marketing startup. I ended up working with him very closely, leveraged that into a position with Yahoo, leveraged that position at Yahoo into working at Double Verify. At Double Verify, I really learned a ton about the marketing ecosystem. And when I left there, I was there for about 4 years. It felt like I graduated and I moved on to IPG Media Brands. And it was this amazing moment for me where it was just like all of the hard work that I put into my career, spinning my wheels just to stay in place. Finally, it felt like I caught some traction and my career was moving forward. So since then, as I mentioned, it's been about 7 years at IPG. I've loved every moment of it. It's been challenging. Every meeting that I go to, every event that I'm at, I'm surrounded by bright, brilliant people. I'm never the smartest person in the room. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I couldn't be. But, it's challenging. It puts you in a position where your peers are rooting for you, but you also want to challenge yourself and be better. It's been terrific. I can't say enough.
I love the kind of silver lining that you're putting on some of the roles that, yes, you're framing as got you to the traction moment. But I'm curious to go back for a minute and just talk about what it felt like to be in a role that you knew wasn't the right fit. Did you already have kind of the wisdom to know, well, maybe these relationships or maybe these skills, or was it a more frustrating kind of visceral experience?
Yeah, I think at the time it was really frustrating because I wanted more. I wanted more for my career. I wanted to grow. I wanted to make more money. I wasn't making a ton of money at all. But I think I was always genuine with my relationships with people and getting to know them. That was the one thing that I was really good at. I may not have been great at the jobs or even good, to be successful at them, but I was really good at building, cultivating, growing relationships. And they weren't transactional. They were genuine. They were getting to know people, what their likes are, things that they don't like, what they are looking to accomplish, how they want to partner with people, what their mentalities and their approach to challenges are. Those are all things that I learned, and I was able to apply them. And I think that's why those relationships that I talk about, the folks that I met at those careers, those jobs that really weren't a good fit, I think that's the biggest takeaway. I don't necessarily even think anymore about the work that I was doing. I don't even remember the work, but I remember the folks that I met and I grew with. And that stands out to me more than anything.
Yeah.
And what are some of the stories that are, let's say, the milestones of this career that you're mentioning, Raman, that, when you think about it, you'll be like, oh, right, that story really shaped me, or that story really left a mark on me.
Of course.
Which are the ones that you would recall?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say there's one specific story that's, that's the biggest of them all, and it's like the elephant in the room whenever I meet new people, right? And it's my journey through cancer and all that came along with it. So the journey itself, the cancer journey itself, and all of the peripheral pressure that came with that begins in 2020, and that was the height of the pandemic, and we're all
not as an easy time to get medical attention either.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. Absolutely. So at the time we were all living in Queens. It was myself, my wife, who was pregnant with our second child, and our 3-year-old daughter. We were in a 2-bedroom apartment in Queens. And every day that apartment gets smaller, and my wife is getting a little bit bigger, and that pressure is a little bit harder on me. So we started looking for a home, and it was hard. Looking for a home was hard. We probably checked out 30 or 40 different homes before we got lucky, and we had been outbid a couple of times. So even though we had some accepted bids for homes, there were others that outbid us, and we lost out on a couple of homes that we really wanted. We ended up getting lucky and finding a nice home. In that process, my mom, who I'm very close with or was very close with, very influential person in my life, she ended up having a stroke. And she was on a ventilator for the last 4 months of her life, just about the entirety of those 4 months.
So sorry.
So I'm in the process of buying a house, closing on the house. My wife is pregnant, about to give birth at any point. My mom, unfortunately, now has a stroke. She's in a hospital for a long time. The whole time, I'm really not focusing on my own health because there's all of these other things going on. At the same time, if you recall, during the pandemic, the pressures of your career have just gone up exponentially as well. There's no more boundaries. You're waking up, you're in your apartment, and you're logging on at maybe 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. And many nights I was working till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night and still sitting there in the same spot all day. So, in between, I'm shuttling my wife to her doctor's appointments. I'm running back and forth between the daycare. I'm trying to visit my mom in the hospital, talking to lawyers while I'm closing on a house, trying to get renovations on that house, minor renovations that needed to be done, a lot of different things. And I'm just not focusing on myself at all. In that time, I was in a conversation very much like I am with you guys right now, and I bit my cheek. And I was really in a lot of pain. It was very painful, and I didn't think anything of it. So a couple of weeks go by. It hasn't gotten better. It feels like it's getting worse. And every time I brush my teeth, every time I use mouthwash, my mouth is burning. It's getting really bad. So after a little while, several weeks go by, my wife says, go to the hospital, go to a doctor, go check it out. So I finally get to a doctor, get shuttled around to a few other doctors. And I remember it vividly. Got into a doctor's office. It was Friday, October 23rd, and my doctor's appointment was at noon. I get there a little early. I'm about 11:45 at the doctor's appointment. And immediately they took me in. Never in my life has a doctor taken me early. I've always waited. So I knew something was up. I knew something was up.
Yeah.
So I get into the doctor's office. He closed the door behind me with no emotion, says, Mr. Khanna, we have confirmed you have cancer. I said, oh. No air, couldn't breathe. felt like I got punched in the stomach.
Mm.
That set forth all of the challenges. Now I have to make a decision. He was telling me that it was stage 3 cancer at the time, progressing very fast. So 2 weeks later, it became stage 4. And it had already spread to my neck, to lymph nodes. So it was very aggressive.
Wow.
They told me I had somewhere in the range of 4 to 6 months to live, which is a wild thing to hear when you're buying a house with a 30-year mortgage. You've got children. I had a 3-year-old at the time. My wife is pregnant with a newborn. And he said it was urgent. You need to go into surgery right away, followed by chemo and radiation, very aggressive treatments. So I really thought, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Do I go through with buying this house? Do I back out and lose my down payment? Do I stay in Queens in this 2-bedroom apartment, not knowing what's behind it? I thought very hard, broke down many times, but decided to go through. We bought the house. We closed on the house, got whatever renovations that we needed to do done. And I was saying this a little earlier, the wildest weekend I've ever had in my life. Friday, November 6th, we spent all day moving from our apartment to Huntington, to our new home. We woke up in the morning and my wife was in labor. Our son was born November 7th, Saturday. 2 days later, everything went fine. My wife and our newborn son finally made it home on November 9th. And then November 10th, woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I was ready for war. And I walked into Lenox Hill Hospital and they performed a surgery to remove the cancerous tumor. And then I was in the hospital for about 10 days before I was in ICU, a hospital for about 10 days before I could make it home. So a lot went on. And finally, when I got home, is where my chemo and radiation treatment started. I did 30 sessions of radiation, 6 weeks of chemo. Have had 2 surgeries since, likely on docket for a 3rd coming up. But it's been a journey through it all. I've been at IPG. I've worked across multiple teams. I've always had the support of the company, of my day-to-day peers. I've had the support of leadership. That's why I say I can't say enough. The loyalty there is incredible. So, for me, when we talk about stories, what's a story that stands out? And I'm sorry to be long-winded. That's really the story that like I said, it's the elephant in the room for me. It's hard for me not to talk about leadership and growth without talking about, everything that I went through in my cancer journey.
It is so powerful to hear you now, so many years past this experience, still going through some of this experience, obviously, but, hearing you've got your weekend where you're, with your kids and you're enjoying life's beautiful moments again. Thank you for being willing to share your story.
And it's an ongoing journey, right? It is something that I look in the mirror and I experience it every day. These scars don't go away, right? These are scars up and down my body that remind me every time I look in the mirror. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The PTSD of it all has been the difficult part. The physical pain of the chemo and the radiation and the side effects of all that was hell. The PTSD and the aftermath of it all has been probably the toughest thing that I've dealt with.
What do you mean by that?
I think I had to come to terms with the fact that, I always approached the last few years. I've always approached, those events, that cancer diagnosis and everything that happened. I've always thought about it in the past without necessarily acknowledging that I didn't address much of those emotions. everything happened so fast. Everything happened all at once that I wasn't able to process any of those emotions how I should, right? I was buying a house. I was having a new child born into our family. I was moving our family. I was dealing with my mom who was unfortunately on her deathbed. All of those are major life events in and of themselves. And on top of that, I have cancer. I never dealt with any of these emotions. So now I'm sitting at home on medical leave. I did the chemo, I did the radiation, I did the surgery. I'm just at home with myself and my thoughts. And now I'm dealing with the PTSD of it all and the trauma. And that's something that has taken some time and you learn. There's been a ton of anxiety. I've battled through, bouts of depression, and bouts of anger, these swings of emotion, right? The only way I could get through that time period was suppressing all of that emotion and being focused, laser focused on what needed to be done. I had very small margin of error. So I had to focus on everything that needed to get done and make sure that my family was taken care of. And then I can deal with the rest. But when you suppress all of that emotion, it comes out in really difficult ways. And I think that was the thing that I had to come to terms with, is that how do you manage emotion in crisis? You have to get through that crisis, which means that maybe at times you're sacrificing your own mental well-being and suppressing that emotion. But at some point you have to face the truth. And that's been difficult.
What are some of the ways that you've been seeking to go through these emotions, right? Everybody has different ways. I mean, with small children, all that is going on, how are you able to push through in your days?
Yeah, I think for me, therapy certainly helped a little bit. I've read quite a bit in terms of some self-help books, right? And I don't know if I want to classify them as self-help books necessarily, but they do help prioritize and position important things in your mind and all of your emotions. So I think I've learned a lot from that regard. I came to an understanding that, I am responsible not just for the well-being of my children, but I'm responsible to them as well, right? Meaning that I'm responsible to them to show how you manage a crisis, how you navigate challenges. That's my responsibility to them. It's not just for their well-being, but there's a responsibility that I have as their father to make sure that I'm teaching them how to work through challenges. And their children watch you every moment of every day, and they're going to mimic all the things that you do, right? So how I respond to challenges today is how they will respond to a challenge 20, 25, 30 years from now, when they're faced with a crisis, because we're all going to face crisis at some point in our lives. But if I am showing them that you don't have to lose your head, right? You can keep a level head, still be in touch with all those emotions that you're going to experience. Keep a level head. You have a lot to do. Focus. I think that is probably the biggest lesson that I would like to pass along to them.
If you go back to kind of I guess I'm curious how you navigated the work portion of it as almost like the dominoes began to fall. Like, it would be hard to tell. I mean, honestly, I've had people say like, oh, I was nervous to say that I was moving because I didn't want you to think I was distracted. And we left the distraction of moving several, crises ago in your story. So how did you navigate and share and create the space, if you could, and it sounds like you were able to, between your own team and your own managers and bosses? There's so many dynamics at work that you're also juggling, and yet nobody wants you to have to juggle those pieces at the same time.
No, of course. At the time, I worked at an IPG agency called Cabrion. And Cabrion had this culture of support that I had never seen before at any other media company, any other company in general. I'd never seen this level of support before. Our former CEO, her name is Erica Schmidt. She was an outstanding leader, and that support started from her. Of course, there were day-to-day folks that I worked with, right, that I was very honest with and telling them, hey, I'm moving. My wife is pregnant. Here's what's going on. When my mom had a stroke, I was very honest about what was happening there. Everybody gave me enough space that I was able to navigate all of those things. And if I needed a little time off to be able to run back and forth between the hospital or to drop my daughter at daycare, and I needed to miss a meeting or a status or something like that, wasn't a big deal. They knew I'd put in the effort. I'll come back. I'll pick up whatever lost work there is. We worked off each other. We collectively helped each other as best as we could. But even as you said, right, bosses and everybody else, people that we report out to, it starts from the top. And it was a culture of support. As I said, I've never seen that level of support before. I would not have been able to do all of these things without that structure of support that was in place.
Very often we read on social media that your manager has more impact than anybody else in your life because they influence so much of what's going on, including the sense of safety. Mm-hmm. And it seems that your declaration of appreciation about how they behaved truly had an impact on your life, especially in America, right? Which is a world where your medical insurance is tied to your work. Yeah. It's a world where there's so much uncertainty around basic needs of safety, right? Like it can really wreck anybody in any situation. And how open were you at work about the emotional roller coaster of it all, including all the surrounding things like your mom, the kids, the house? What was your level of disclosure there?
I have always been an open book about this. There's nothing for me to hide behind or not share. I think I was always upfront about all of the challenges that I faced, and I didn't want for that to be something I didn't share across. I wanted to bring my whole authentic self, as they say, to work, right? And that may mean that I'm dealing with the passing of my mother. I'm dealing with the birth of my son and my move and a terminal illness. I'm going to share these things so you understand what I'm going through, but I'm also going to give you 100% of what I can to work, to our career. I've never been shy about it. Although once all of the treatment was over and I was kind of just dealing with the mental aspect of it, that's where I think I found myself dealing with a lot of anxiety, and I would be very quiet in meetings and not share openly. I think I found myself just trying to position who I was. I was still figuring my emotions out, and I just did not share what I would normally do. My personality would not come out in meetings, right? In my career. And I've learned in the past few years that I need to bring my authentic self back in, right? And if that means sharing across the mental health journey now, and not necessarily the physical journey that I went through. Now it's a little bit more around the mental health and the dealing with the PTSD of it all. I want to be an open book and a conduit for that conversation.
Mm. Well, just as one listener to your story, it is a benefit to the people that you share with to hear how you have pushed through and worked through something that, we hope nobody has to go through. But we know folks do have things like this happen. And it's really powerful to hear instead of, you've healed and wow, miraculous. It's all good. Everything's fine. And yes, there's so much good in this story, but there's hard times as well. And I think that is the messy human side that often doesn't get shared behind the veneer of, well, we've got to keep driving for impact. We've got to keep getting, like, well, that's kind of hard to do, actually, if we're not being honest about what's going on in life.
This story is a reminder that companies and corporations are made by humans. And the sum of the corporation, the sum of the impact is the sum of how these humans are doing. I just flew back from West Coast yesterday, and we did an exercise there about River of Life, which is about sharing all of the ups and downs that have shaped your life. And I couldn't stop crying when everybody was sharing the moments that were shaping their existence from childbirth to now. And so, now that you went through all of this, Raman, and you are still in some portion of it, how is this shaping you in terms of the contribution that you want to give back to influence the way corporations behave?
Yeah.
What has that sparked in you?
I think I want folks to keep things in perspective. Life can be taken away from you in an instant, and all the other things don't really matter, right? So priority, your family and your community come first, right? Your career is an important part of that. Where you position your career is a very personal thing, right? People can make the career the most important thing, and maybe community and family fall behind it. But your career influences all of the other things as well, right? So prioritize. Personally, I think for me, there are things that I'm learning every day, right? I want to create new memories, and whether that is professional memories, right? Sharing a story across, to hundreds of people in person, or bringing cultural moments to our teams and our company. I've been involved in a number of things, such as, I've led the breast cancer walk at our company a handful of times in the past few years. I've been influential in bringing a Holocaust survivor to speak to our company about their experience. What I want to make sure that companies are establishing that same level of support system. I want to contribute to that same level of support system that I walked into when I started at Cadreon. And, I get that that's not a common thing. It's not something that is found at all companies. And, truth is, it's probably less and less so in today's world. But there's so much perspective. There's so much emotional intelligence out there that can be applied to what we do in media and marketing. I know that sounds ridiculous, but there is so much that we can do in terms of influence as far as emotion go that we haven't even tapped into yet. Mm-hmm. And part of that stems from establishing a culture of support. And that's been really what my focus is the last few years, is how do I recapture that structure of support?
I love that. I think it comes through in the difference that it made to you, so that then you can, help pay it forward for the difference that it will make to someone else. But also that connection of, we're in marketing, we're about connecting with humans, and look at the difference it can make to the work we're doing as well, not just the culture and the people that we're, working together with. I actually think, even though, you point out that might seem trite in comparison, but it's true. That is, we're connecting as humans, and that's what marketing's about too.
Yeah.
Well, Raman, we're so thankful that you shared so openly your story. Must have been really hard. I mean, it was really hard for me to listen to it. I lost my mom to cancer 11 years ago. And so I'm always reminded of how thin is the thread that is holding our lives. And you shared so many nuggets. If you were to summarize in one sentence your word or advice for the listeners, what this sentence would be?
That's hard to say. I will say this. There's a quote by Stuart Scott, and he was a sportscaster who passed away of cancer. Maybe 10 years ago. I mistaken on exactly when. Very personable guy. Center of attention every time he was on the screen. He had a quote about living with cancer and dealing with it. And I'm going to read it only because I have it in front of me. I'm going to read it because otherwise I'm going to butcher it. But he says, when you die, it doesn't mean that you lose to cancer. You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and the manner in which you live. That's been my approach since I was punched in the gut in that doctor's office.
Wow. Well, I think you have lived an incredible life from getting punched in the gut. And an amazing example for your kids, for your family, for everybody that you're touching here. Certainly by sharing this story, you're impacting even more. You're living even bigger, more impactful life. So huge thank you.
Thank you.
If you're open to it and folks want to reach out, they hear this story, is there a way that you would like people to connect with you?
Yeah. Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm on both. I don't post a ton on either, but I'm active there. You can probably find me there.
Raman, your family is so lucky to have you and your kids. They have such an example of strength and resilience and grit in life. And, I want to wish you a very long life. This is the best wish that I feel to do to you today. And
Thank you.
I think it will be that way because your spirit needs to stay around in this humanly body for a very long time still.
I'm not going anywhere.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Raman.
Wow, Jeff, that was a very powerful one.
It's amazing when you ask, the question you led with was, what's a story that stands out to you? And of course this stands out, but you really just never know from such a energetic, happy, all of that. And gosh, just on the heels of a horrible string of events.
Yeah.
But yet such an optimistic person coming out from that. Very, very powerful to sit through and to chat with and talk with them. So Nadia, what are you taking away? There's a lot to take away, but what's sticking out to you?
Listen, as I shared, I came from this week that I felt I was on another planet, and I'm going to merge the two. And here's the point I'm making. Because we did this exercise there, which was this river of life, and then this today, it's such a reminder that there's so much going on in people's lives. Mm. And these events have an impact on everything else. Now, I'm not saying that suddenly in corporations, we all need to be therapists and coaches and, eventually we are paid to let an impact, right? And as a human leader, I find myself often into the pendulum of swinging in one way or the other, like super caring. But then at the end of the day, I need to lend an impact as well. And how much do I bring about my own struggles to work as well? We had an episode about this one time as well. And the way that I'm leaning towards, even based on today's conversation, is there's got to be a way to find moments or pockets of moments where there is an outlet, a collective outlet for these topics to be discussed. It was beautiful that in this 48 hours summit that I went to Mountain View for, Gopi, my mentor, intentionally inserted these moments of river of lives for people to talk about what their life was comprehensively. And that had such an incredible impact on us as a team. 20 people that after we've heard of everybody's stories, we felt more safe, we felt more united, we felt more in sync. So the takeaway for me is really that life is not to be hidden under a carpet or a rug, especially in corporation. It has to be intentionally shared. So there has to be an intent behind how it's done, because the equation is stronger teams are born out of people that deeply care for each other. So this is my learning today, Jeff.
I love that, Nadia. I think there's a lot of irony in that wisdom, because imagine we didn't know this about Raman and we were working together on a team. How could we possibly pretend to have a strong team culture? I mean, we would be missing what he's calling the elephant in his life, and quite obviously this is impacting literally every moment of every day and every meeting and every decision. And to think about, yes, I want my team to feel comfortable and confident, supported when they go through hard. Yes, that is the good human leader thing to do. But also, to your point and to his, you're getting results at the same time, because you're getting the dream culture. You're getting the connectivity and the collaboration and the authenticity. And it's from being real, not from shoveling it under the carpet, like you're saying. So that to me goes along with my main takeaway, which is, of course, the perspective. That I think being something that sticks out to him. It is something that it is almost a cliche. We've had a couple of people on the podcast who've been through life-threatening illness, and the advice is perspective from each of them. And I think that even as a child, you hear these sorts of stories, and that is the lesson. And yet it's something we just can't seem to learn as human beings. We just can't seem to keep it in perspective until something traumatic like that happens. And to fight that natural tendency to lose the perspective, I left Google and I'm stressed about, did I make the right decision? I've got to work extra hard because this and this needs to happen in order for me to feel validated in the decisions that I'm making. And what the hell? How can I wind up anxiety? Then when you hear a story like that and you reground in what really matters. And I think just constantly remembering to keep things in perspective, focus on what matters most. I mean, is there anything more important than that? So that's really what's sticking with me. And just a great, powerful conversation. Thankful to him for coming on and sharing.
I mean, I love your reflections, and it's beautiful what you said. And I want to leave our listeners with a question then, taking it one step further, which is, what are your life priorities? When we speak about priorities, I don't know that many of us, I don't know that everybody of us spends time in identifying what those are in a way that is real. And my reflections also go back to one of our guests that we had, one of our 99 humans that is not with us anymore. The story of Ben, which was so powerful. I think that at some point, you got to reflect on it. So if you feel called to it, take a piece of paper right now and think about what your life priorities are and how you can honor them. And it doesn't necessarily have to be family. I know everybody says family. Just be genuine and transparent with yourself, and have a conversation with your inner wisdom and saying, what are you prioritizing for?
Raman had a little comment dose of wisdom on that, where he goes, for some people, career is their number one focus. Yeah. And it was a very non-judgmental. It was just to your point, you can't keep it in perspective if you haven't done it doesn't have to be a ton of work, at least a little bit of reflection on, well, what are the things that matter to me, so that then I can keep them in perspective. Yeah. I love that as kind of a homework assignment here.
Well, Jeff, always amazing seeing you. Everybody, we are approaching the end of our 99 humans. And so stay tuned for a few more, a dozen, I think, interviews are going to come your way. And if you feel called and compelled, give us 5 stars and sign up for our newsletter in our website to follow the adventures, as this will become a book that we all hope you'll be reading. So thank you, Jeff, and thank you everybody for listening. Until next
Thank you.
time.
Until next time.
Bye.